Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is Monday night, not 1:30 a.m. this time. Pretty nice having just one Monday night football game, as great as those two last week were. But the Las Vegas Raiders are victorious in the first ever game in Vegas, 34-24, beat the New Orleans Saints. Big surprise. I mean, this was a game that the Saints opened up nearly a touchdown favorite. Line moved down to -4 by game time. Obviously, did have Michael Thomas and all that. But, for the Raiders to go out there and win by 2 scores, very convincing win for them. A great job, by Gruden, by Derek Carr, by the whole squad. Even the defense went out there and played well. Obviously, we got some more notes to go into that. But, yeah, so thanks again for tuning in, everyone. We're going to go over that Monday night game in this podcast, and then also want to get and touch on some injury news and waiver wire implications of that. So this will be a little bit shorter than usual. Try and keep this one to 20 minutes, break down that game, injuries and waivers. Let's get after it. So quickly, Vegas Raiders, hey, all the credit in the world again to Derek Carr. I'm certainly one of many on the old Twitter sphere. I'd like to give him plenty of shit over the years. This wasn't exactly a performance to help people like myself pipe down all that much. I mean, out of his 38 pass attempts, only one traveled 20 plus yards downfield. I mean, we had replays. His one completion to Jason Witten for 3 yards, Henry Ruggs just breaking free, wide open downfield. There's another time under pressure where wide open Josh Jacobs in the flat. Wasn't a perfect performance, but guess what? The guy threw for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns against a defense that going into the game I thought was pretty darn good at all 3 levels of the field. So, it's not like every offense in the league just makes a living throwing downfield. I mean, last year, the Saints and 49ers, if you just look at the end of the year at deep ball rates, Jimmy G and Drew Brees were both in the bottom of the league, and Bridgewater as well, in throwing down in percentage of passes to go 20 plus yards downfield. And Great team success, great offenses, all top 5 offenses, but, they were at the bottom of the league in that metric. So you don't have to throw deep. I just think the threat of throwing deep is what kind of opens up everything else. So, they put up 34 points. And again, Carr was as efficient as, we've seen him, but 7.4 yards per attempt just wasn't the type of world-beating performance that, someone with his arm talent and kind of the flashes we've seen over the years maybe could be capable of. So, hey, 2-0 Raiders. Carr is a big reason why maybe he keeps this up, and he just doesn't need to go downfield as all that often as much as people would like him to do. We'll see what happens, but on this Monday night here in week 2 in September, fair play to Derek Carr on the great game and the great win. Raiders backfield, Josh Jacobs comes in at 67% snaps. This is what we expect in, big performances where the Raiders are going to play with a lead most of the way. The question coming into this game was, if we were going to see negative game script, would Jacobs be out there for the targets, or would we see Jalen Richard, Devontae Booker? Still up in the air. I talked about this kind of going into the game, but last year in week 1, Raiders beat up on the Broncos. Jacobs played 70% plus snaps, 2 scores. It was going great. Next 2 weeks when they lost, he couldn't even find the field 50% of the time. They had been getting him more involved as a receiver, and they continue to do so at night. I mean, tonight, 3 catches on 3 targets for 17 yards, and he looked good doing so. He's always looked good as a receiver. That's why we want the Raiders to throw him the ball more. It's not like he's this trash receiver that people want to get the ball to. It's just a way of getting your athletes in space, in the open field, and as we saw last year, Josh Jacobs, number 2 in the league in total broken tackles, top 3 back in elusive rating. Truly one of the league's better just players with the ball in his hand. It would be nice to see them give him more open field opportunities. We are starting to see that. Either way, 30 touches. It's unfortunate he couldn't find the end zone. I mean, he got so close a few times. He had this absurd run from about the 9-yard line where he must have broke 3 tackles before carrying the pile all the way down to 1. They never could get him in the end zone. It was a number of just vulture opportunities. Jalen Richard punched in a touchdown from 20 yards out towards the end, and it looked like they might get down in the scoring range again. The fullback, Ingold, had a short touchdown reception when it looked like they'd be going to Jacobs. And on a 4th and 1, they faked the Jacobs and then went to Waller out in the flat. Zay Jones also had a touchdown that was around the red zone area. So definitely a situation where I think if they played this game, 100 times, the amount of times that Jacobs wouldn't find the end zone would certainly be slim. But hey, for him to go out there and get those 30 touches, similar to the Joe Mixon game from last Thursday night. I know people aren't happy about, the production we saw from Jacobs, but all the usage is there. The snaps are there so far. Still a little bit worried about what happens with negative game script. But hey, if these first 2 weeks are an indication, maybe the Raiders won't be playing with as much negative game script script as we anticipated going into the year. So Josh Jacobs still fully locked and loaded as an RB1. He did leave the game briefly. It looked like a hamstring injury, but came back in, looked no worse for the wear. We'll have to monitor the injury participation, practice participation, throughout the week, but so far it appears that Jacobs got off free. If there was some, situation where Jacobs did get hurt, I do think Devontae Booker would be the guy to own over Jalen Richard. We saw last year when Jacobs missed time, Richard stayed in that pass down role and DeAndre Washington took over. So I do think Booker is probably the handcuff if things do come to that. In the passing game, it was just Darren Waller and everyone else. 16 targets for the Raiders. Tight end one. He caught 12 of them for 103 yards and a score. Only a long of 18. They just couldn't guard him. It was one, great play after another. They shuffled defenders on him all night. Didn't really matter who it was. Waller just kept beating them. I was one of many that I didn't necessarily not expect Waller to have a good year. Still had him inside my top, I think 8 tight ends and everything, but wasn't the guy I was willing to go out and get. Him, Higbee, that whole group of middle-class tight ends, they just weren't a group I was willing to reach for. I thought too many questions and too many, potential breakout studs like Jonnu Smith and Chris Herndon. So, obviously hindsight's 2020, but, definitely probably should have given a little more credit to just Waller's natural talent and that winning out in the offense. Not only that, but just, Derek Carr's profile of how he's going to play the quarterback position. Jared Cook 2 years ago, Waller last year, and Waller this year. The guy's churning out top 5 PPR tight ends. That's exactly where Waller belongs. How can you not put him up there after this performance? Very few tight ends in the league have 16 target games in their range of outcomes. This is not the first time Waller has just, gone to town with these targets. 16 might be a career high, but, he has had these games where he just flies past 10 with ease. He's the undisputed one in this passing game as long as Derek Carr is under center. Otherwise, it was pretty disappointing to see, the usage elsewhere. Bryan Edwards, only 2 targets, caught both of them for 42 yards and looked great. He drew defensive pass interference another time, so every time they went his way, he looked good. He looked explosive. He looked strong, but, just not enough opportunity. Renfro caught all 3 of his targets for 37 yards, no scores. He's a decent, underrated in yak maybe, and also obviously super slippery out of the slot. Great route runner, but not enough opportunity there. Nelson Aguilar had a 19-yard catch. Zay Jones had the aforementioned touchdown. Henry Ruggs only 1 catch for 4 yards. Still racking up the air yards. Going into week 1, Henry Ruggs had the highest air yard market share in the entire league. Might still be there, honestly. Again, Derek Carr, only 1 pass attempt thrown 20 yards downfield in this game, so wouldn't be surprised if Ruggs is still over that 50% number, but he's just going to need to catch one. It's going to be a low floor, and he's going to need to catch one of those, 2 bombs he can get Carr to throw him per game, because otherwise in this passing game, past Darren Waller looking like a mystery. So still high on Ruggs long term, but they're going to need to do something with Carr throwing a little bit more downfield, or just change his usage a little bit more if this is going to be, the Waller show. So I would say Ruggs out of the group has the best chance of, being a fantasy factor more weeks than not. We saw in week 1, they weren't afraid to use him in the screen game with some reverses and things like that. So I do think they're not afraid to give him some short targets, which he's more than capable of making the most out of. But, those deep balls that really could unlock his full potential just might not be there as some have thought. Moving on to the Saints side of the ball. Yeah, Drew Brees, 312 yards on 38 attempts, 1 score, 1 pick, but just did not look good doing so. And, he's definitely catching the wrath of the Twitter sphere right now. Many calling for, 2020 vision Jameis to get out there, or, even God forbid, everyone's least favorite vulture, Taysom Hill. But, Breeze, we'll see what happens. It does give a little bit of a semblance to kind of the Peyton Manning 2015 season when his arm was shot. But I think in this offense, and once Michael Thomas gets healthy again with Kamara and Michael Thomas, those underneath just monsters, I think we're going to see more often than not them able to move the ball. And this was supposed to be a spot where they could do that. Week 1, second fewest yards per play of the entire week. That was against the Buccaneers, so we gave that defense a lot of credit. But this Raiders defense, they made a Carolina Panthers offense that really didn't have any continuity going this year, looked pretty damn good in week 1. And they were, again, able to at least limit Breeze enough so that they only had 17 points before there were, 4 minutes and 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So, fair play to the Raiders defense for standing up. First game in their home stadium. Maybe that, the emotions were running high and had something to do with it, but just not good from Breeze back-to-back weeks. And it's going to be problematic kind of treating him as a QB1 moving forward. I did my quarterback rankings article today. That'll be up in the morning, but, was ranking the guys before the Monday night game. And just with Brees, he wasn't someone I was really running up to go to after that week 1, but, we still got to deal with this reality that he's Drew Brees. I ended up putting him in outside of the top 12. I was my QB 13 before the game. He's got a Sunday night matchup next week against the Green Bay Packers, so not the best spot. Jair Alexander's doing some great things, and they just don't have a guy that can win right now with Michael Thomas if he's out. So, I really would be looking to play guys like Gardner Minshew, Joe Burrow, Matt Ryan. I have all these guys ranked higher than Brees going to next week, and, I might even move him potentially below people like Ben Roethlisberger, Ryan Tannehill. We've never really seen Brees be this guy that's not a QB1 in fantasy, but right now it's not looking good. And, with this offense, you take away Michael Thomas, it's Alvin Kamara can't do it all. So, unfortunate start for the Saints. They've had some wild stretch of starting, they never get through these first 2 weeks with 2 wins. So, not giving up on them yet at all. But, at a minimum, I think we need to question the overall upside of this offense, particularly this passing game moving forward. Alvin Kamara had himself a nice game per usual. Fantasy friendly as all hell, particularly with some of those catches in mop-up time. Overall, he had 13 carries, 79 yards, 2 scores. Also caught 9 passes for 95 yards. Played 63% of the offensive snaps. Latavius Murray was in there at 29%. He only had 3 carries, 14 yards. Also caught 2 passes. But Ty Montgomery was making this a little bit of a 3-headed committee. He caught 2 passes for 25 yards. Maybe it was because they were just losing that Ty Montgomery got any run at all. But I will say, if he is going to be getting 10-12% snaps per game, that's going to just about do it for Latavius Murray, standalone value. There's going to be better game scripts where the Saints are up and they'll lean on Latavius to get those 10 or 15 rush attempts. I know he had that many in week 1, but the timeout, who this guy insists on wearing 88 and it pisses me off. But anyway, timeout coming in and playing and siphoning away that level of snaps. It's already tough enough with Murray. That's concerning moving forward. Lowers his already small pass game ceiling. I do wonder a little bit if Kamara were to go down, if, we would see Murray and Montgomery form more of a committee than, the featured Murray show we saw last season. Wouldn't hate moving, the likes of Pollard, Madison, Edmonds ahead of Murray in the handcuffs ratings because of that. I still think it's the big 4 and, the little everyone else, but a little bit concerning usage from Ty Montgomery there. Just something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Alvin Kamara, he's obviously continued to be fired up as a top 5 back. Looking at these wide receivers, Emmanuel Sanders, just big disappointment. Only 1 catch for 18 yards, and it happened with just a minute left in the game. Only 3 targets. Just very surprising to see them, go out of their way to sign him in free agency and not have more of a plan to get him the ball. This was a guy that, with the 49ers last year, he was roasting Patrick Peterson, who was trying to shadow him one-on-one. He was a better ball away from scoring the go-ahead touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, it's surprising not to see him use more. Traquan Smith had 7 targets. Deontay Harris had 5. Again, Kamara had 9. Jared Cook had 5 targets. None of these guys just were able to go off. And the only guy with over 30 yards was Traquan Smith, who converted his caught 5 of 7 targets for 86 yards. Again, Kamara had the aforementioned 95. But credit to Traquan for, making a lot of plays. He had some nice yak throughout the game, was breaking tackles. But otherwise, it was just, sad to see out there. Jared Cook, nice red zone touchdown where he's lined up out wide, came in, kind of out-bullied the defender at the point and fell into the end zone. But not a lot of separation, not a lot of easy yards, and it does seem like defenses are finally just crowding the line of scrimmage and forcing Brees to try to beat them deep, which right now they are not really built to do. We'll see if they can turn it around. It's a long season. Again, I think there's too much talent on the Saints offense and defense for them to not make the playoffs. I still have them as the favorites to win the NFC South, but credit to the Raiders again for a great win. And they are 2-0 and the Saints are 1-1. So we'll see moving forward. I know a lot of people gave Peter King flack for, shouting out the Raiders I don't know if he picked them to win the AFC West, but he at least had them in the playoffs and, they're looking good. So tough stretch coming up for them. Saints, I think, have a chance to get on track here. Once they get Michael Thomas back, we will see. So that is the Monday Night Football recap. Now we're just going to go through some of the injury news from today and the waiver wire implications. So starting off with the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo is week to week with an ankle injury, but there's a chance he'll play Sunday. So it sounds like at a minimum, he'll be in a good spot to play in week 4. Nick Mullins is a guy that, I did backup quarterback rankings earlier in this offseason, and I ranked the 49ers in the top 8 mainly because of Nick Mullins. When he played a few years ago, he did look good out there. The 49ers had interest in him. going into the season, but they would not trade him. And that was kind of the reports coming out in April when teams were looking into him. So they like him enough to not want to give him up at this point. So I don't think it's going to be a long audition for him in there. He doesn't run, so I don't think it's going to be the most fantasy-friendly situation with no receivers out there for him. I'm not saying you need to stream Nick Mullins, but I definitely wouldn't count out the 49ers against the spread or on the money line or anything like that, just because they're going from Jimmy G to Mullins. More fancy applicable part of this 49ers team, though, is the backfield. Tevin Coleman with a knee injury, expected to miss multiple weeks, and Raheem Mostert with an MCL sprain is not likely to play on Sunday. So that leaves us with seemingly a three-back backfield. Jerick McKinnon, Jermichael Hasty is expected to get called up from the practice squad, and Jeff Wilson. Now, the question is, I think it's going to be a committee, but can Jerick McKinnon be that lead back? Because he's looked great so far. 9 touches for 121 yards, 2 scores. He had that 55-yard monster run, like a 3rd and 31 against the Jets. He's broken 3 tackles on those 9 touches. He's looked explosive. And, is he ready for the real bigger role? I think so. I think he's the next man up. They've been using him on kick returns in these first 2 games. I think if they had hesitations about his health or keeping him, fresh, they wouldn't be trotting him out there on special teams. So I know his snaps haven't been super high in these 2 weeks, but I do think he's their RB3. And, only Jeff Wilson and Hasty there, I think McKinnon is going to have a chance, get double-digit touches. So McKinnon right now is my number 2 priority waiver ad of the week. We'll get to number 1 here in a couple minutes, but do love McKinnon more than anyone else in this backfield. If you're in a really big league, I don't mind taking a shot on Jeff Wilson. He was really efficient last year with his touches, scored, I believe, 5 touchdowns and, fewer than 30 touches all season. So definitely made the most of his opportunity. It's still going to be an offense. I think it's going to be able to run the ball well and efficiently, no matter who they're putting back there, thanks to Kyle Shanahan being, an offensive wizard. But, Hasty, Wilson, I think a little bit lower ceiling. They're not going to get a pass down work. That's McKinnon. McKinnon's best case is getting, a quasi 3-down back roll. His worst case, getting a little extra rush attempts on top of the already fantasy-friendly targets he's getting. So I think McKinnon is the back to own for sure in San Fran. Again, he's my number 2 waiver ad. My number 1 waiver ad comes out of Carolina, and that's Mr. Mike Davis. Christian McCaffrey will be missing 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain, and look, Mike Davis, we saw him a couple years ago with the Seahawks really doing some good things. And with the Bears, he got that first snap last season. People thought he might be starting, and they cut him, and he didn't make his mark there, but got signed by Carolina, beat out Reggie Bonifant in the preseason. Now, this is a situation where we have not seen preseason snaps or McCaffrey out at all, pretty much. Bonifant was not active in that game last week. He's going to be there. Maybe it's more of a committee. There's not many guys out there like Christian McCaffrey. I think it'd be silly to expect Mike Davis to get a 1-for-1 role replacement, but he was out there enough to catch all 8 targets for 74 yards. He looked good doing so. This was garbage time. I get it. I don't expect him to replicate that receiving line next week, but he's a capable 3-down back. I think he's going to go out there and play something along the lines of 50-60% snaps. I think we're going to see Bonifant there for 25-30%. And I truly do think Curtis Samuel is going to get a lot more run in the backfield than people might be expecting. He was already getting some snaps last week. Rules talked about throughout the offseason how they do like using him as both an RB and receiver. The guy's been doing it since college. The Panthers were doing it with him towards the end of last year as well. Curtis Samuel, super high career yards per attempt rate. He's not a small guy. He's shifty as all hell. I'm excited to see them get him some more opportunities in space, but I do think Mike Davis, when you look at the backs that are available with the Giants, with the 49ers, I think those scream multi-back committees at a minimum. Again, I think McKinnon's got that pass down role. He can make the most out of it, but Mike Davis is my number 1 waiver ad of the week because out of all these guys, I think he has the clearest path to that elusive 3-down role that we were always looking for in Fantasyland. All right, number 3 ad that I'm looking at this week comes from the New York Giants. So Saquon Barkley, unfortunately, out for the season with an ACL injury. Also note that Sterling Shepard with a toe is expected to miss a few weeks. So Darius Slayton, Golden Tate managers out there, don't be afraid to fire them up with a little more confidence moving forward in this condensed passing game. But, speaking specifically on the running back room, I'm out on Dion Lewis, people. Let this, we'll see if it comes back to bite me. I'm not going to spend half my fab on Dion Lewis, who, while he got the featured role with the Titans when Derrick Henry was out over these last 2 seasons, he did not do anything with it. I mean, we saw it was one of the worst games from a starting running back, I think, all season last year when he was out there. He had great success with the Patriots. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dion Lewis's career, but this is a pint-sized running back that's been a pass-down specialist for most of his career, and we have little to no evidence over the last 2 seasons of him doing anything at a high level as a true 3-down back. So I think Wayne Gallman is the guy that's going to end up leading this backfield. I'm not saying Jordan Renan is, the top reporter in the world, but he did say that Gallman, the coaches were saying that he can carry the load, and if Barkley misses times, the idea is that Dion Lewis isn't built for a big role. He'll remain the pass down back. Gallman can come in and more or less replicate Barkley. Gallman's not playing on special teams. Why would he need to be active on game days when Barkley's going to be there playing 80-90% of the snaps and Dion Lewis is doing his pass down role? I think Gallman is the guy. I would prioritize adding him. He's my number 3 because I think there is a chance that with Devontae Freeman, visiting there, and also Dion Lewis being there, there's no guarantee with this new coaching staff that Gallman's going to get that same role he had last year. Again, 1 start last season, Gallman had 18 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, 6 catches, 55 yards, and 1 touchdown receiving. The problem is, there was no Dion Lewis on that team, so definitely wouldn't be surprised if Dion Lewis's, 10-20% role with Saquon almost doubles now that Gallman's there, but I really do think Gallman's going to be the guy flirting with 15, 20 touches more weeks than not. The reason why I have him behind Mike Davis and behind Jerick McKinnon, though, is look at this Giants offense. We want volume, but again, the pass game volume might be tough. This is still an offense that has not been able to do anything in 2 tough matchups against the Steelers and Bears. But still not the easiest stretch in September, and after that, we'll see what happens. But definitely not a guarantee that even if Gallman gets his volume, it's gonna be all that fantasy friendly. So I'm pretty out on trying to reserve Devontae Freeman. We don't know where he's gonna go, and what we want to spend a bunch of money on Freeman just hoping he's going to go to the Giants and then just get a 3-down roll by Sunday, or they're going to wait and give it to him in 2 weeks? I don't think so. He did not look good at all last season. We're now going to week 3. No one signed him yet. Him and his agent or whoever can put out whatever statements they want in the media saying they're waiting and this and that. I know he's been getting active visits, but he can be waiting for the, top situation all he wants. I just think okay, Adrian Peterson came out of nowhere and got 14 carries on the Lions. It can't happen. These things do happen. But, for a player that really seemed to be on his last legs last year, to be just without a team, we have no idea what kind of shape he's in. And again, has been on multiple visits with nothing to come of them. I think it's a massive reach to expect him to do anything. And again, all the same problems I just said about Gallman, potentially applying to Gallman also apply to Freeman. Expecting Freeman to come in and just take over the Saquon role 1-for-1 while Gallman and Dion, piss off on the sideline. I do not expect that to happen at all. So Wayne Gallman, number 3, waiver ad of the week. Wouldn't blow the bank on him. If you want to put up a significant percentage of your fab, I wouldn't recommend over 50% on any of these guys or anything like that. But if you want to go a little bit significant, Mike Davis, number 1, Jerick McKinnon, number 2, and Mr. Wayne Gallman, number 3, everyone. So a couple other situations to monitor. Paris Campbell with a knee injury is out indefinitely, unfortunately. Don't think there's too much we can do with this right now. The target threshold in this game last week with Paris out early was Michael Pittman, 6 targets. Mo Alley Cox had 6, T.Y. Hilton 5, Zach Pascal 4, Jonathan Taylor 2, Nyheim Hines 1. That's going to change in future weeks. Nyheim Hines is going to have more, as we saw in week 1. Taylor could have more. I think the big takeaway was that Rivers throwing 25 passes instead of 46 makes way more sense. This is going to be a run-first offense going through Taylor and their big badass offensive line. The targets, I think, behind T.Y. Hilton, who at some point is going to emerge as this offense's number 1 pass game option, they're going to be up and down. Hey, if Jack Doyle stays sidelined, maybe Max Shineke, Mo Alley Cox can make his, keep making plays and do his thing. But more than likely, we see Doyle come back, start splitting reps again at tight end, becomes even more muddled. Behind T.Y. Hilton, I just don't think there's going to be enough consistent volume for anyone to ball out in this passing game. Luckily, Devontae Adams' injury is not considered serious per coach Matt LaFleur. He might have had a chance to go back in the game. They just didn't want to risk it with the lead. So it sounds like he'll be fine. I do think it's a good situation to realize, hey, this passing game is great. And going into the year, the only reason why these Packers receivers, meaning MBS and Lazard, weren't ranked higher is because we really didn't know what the pecking order was going to be, or if these guys would be playing even full-time roles. And we had guys like Kumara, Equinemius, St. Brown, Just a lot more uncertainty there. So now that we know the Packers are rolling with, a true 3 wide receiver set of Adams, MVS, and Lazard, you feel free to treat MVS and Lazard as, that kind of weekly upside wide receiver 4s that as we get in these bye weeks, we're going to want guys associated with Aaron Rodgers on the roster to start if we need them. So a lot of injuries going on. There are worse guys to have than receivers that could be on the field upwards of 80% of the snaps with Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Drew Lock with a right shoulder injury is going to be sidelined at least 2 weeks. Courtland Sutton with a knee is done for the season. Jerry Jeudy needs to be owned in every single league and honestly should be started more times than not. Looks amazing as a route runner. Really has been struggling with some drops the first 2 weeks, but I don't think that's going to be a long-term issue at all. The more underrated guy, because I think Jeudy is owned in a lot of leagues already, but KJ Hamler is someone to keep an eye on. Started to flash that last week. This guy has speed for days. I know he couldn't run at the combine, but as a lifetime Ohio State fan, watching this dude just blow past our secondary time or two at Penn State, this dude can fly. I mean, I really think he could have put something up there with the 40 time that started with a 4.2. So excited to see him there. I don't think Jeff Driscoll is going to make this offense unwatchable or anything. This guy's actually awesome. He's really fun to watch. Since the week 1 of 2019, Jeff Driscoll joins Matthew Stafford and Jameis Winston as the only quarterbacks with a double-digit average target depth. I mean, this dude is not afraid to chuck it downfield. We saw that last week. I mean, he threw for 256 yards and a pair of scores coming off the bench against the freaking Steelers. Had him a chance to almost win the game. So, all the credit to him. I don't think he's going to be a long-term answer or anything like that. This week's going to be tough, coming in. But moving forward, I'm not going to be afraid to use him as a potential DFS option. This guy can run. He's put last year with the Lions in 3 starts, he had 37 rushing yards, 51 rushing yards in his score, 63 rushing yards. Last week, he only had 2 carries for 5 rushing yards, but truly has the athleticism to make it happen, has the gunslinger mentality to chuck it downfield. Driscoll, is like a poor man's Josh Allen out there. Might be able to take some people by surprise in DFS while they're still figuring him out. All right, last one, I believe, everyone. Thank you for staying with me here. But Cam Akers with a ribs injury. Didn't see an update today with this, so some will really want to monitor throughout the week. But I think it's just noting that we want these Rams backs on our roster because, again, as we get in the bye weeks, as more guys get injured, as we get more and more desperate, you could do much worse than someone that's looking at double-digit touches per game inside of this Rams offense. And, last week what we saw was Malcolm Brown play 54% snaps. Henderson played 42% after Akers left after just 3 snaps. And it's reflective of what Sean McVay has been saying really throughout the whole offseason, that they have 3 running backs. They're going to go with the hot hand. They're going to go with who's playing better. In week 1, that was Malcolm Brown. In week 2, that was Darrell Henderson. Because of this, we're not going to be able to consistently rank these guys in the top 24, but there's going to be big games from them in this offense that is, trending more and more towards being a run-first unit. So, again, you can do way worse than 10, 12 touches inside this offense. Always got some multi-touchdown upside. If either guy's available, they should be on your roster. So, thank you for tuning in, everyone. A quick shout out to our sponsor, though, Monkey Knife Fight. Just want to note that all first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's a $40 value for just $20, and you'll get the opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA in Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. So make sure to take advantage of that. Thank you for tuning in to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Ian Hartitz, and we will have more podcasts on the way. Wednesday, breaking down all 16 games of PFF's own Andrew Erickson, and then having on from Fantasy Pros, Mike Tagliari, to talk some starts and sits and also some DFS plays on Thursday. So thank you all for tuning in as always, and until next time, take care.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.